Hey, let me ask you a question. You ever feel stressed? I know I do, like all the time. And the truth is, we probably stress out over things much more than we actually should. You know, it's tough. Life can be busy and it can be incredibly demanding. But you know what? As difficult as it is for us to manage our stress as adults, a new study from the Center for Addiction and Mental Health says that stress has become the new soul-sucking virus of the modern age for teenagers. So how do we help our kids? What do we do? Don't worry, our good friend and registered psychotherapist, Andrew Blackwood, is here to help us navigate through this incredibly important topic. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure, Joe.
Now, I know adults stress, but kids are stressing today too.
Definitely.
Now, are they stressing more today than ever before? Or because of social media and other forms of media, do we just know more about it? Or are they facing new challenges that we didn't have to face when, we were their age?
I think that will always be the case. Things will always seemingly get worse.
Okay.
But personally, there's no way for me to tell if they're stressing more than they were then. I think the beauty of it is I get to meet with people one-on-one. And in that moment, they're the only person that exists.
That's right. It's about
right?
what they're going through.
Exactly. So their stress is their stress. Whether or not it was more stressful than my stress isn't the issue. So we get to help people figure out, okay, how are you experiencing this and what are you going to do about this?
Okay, so as adults, I hope that we have a better understanding of the world and, we have a little more maturity and experience on our side so we can process things hopefully a little better. But for a young person, like at what age are kids, really starting to feel stress now?
Well, stress can start at a very early age, depending on what kind of factors they're having to deal with.
Yeah.
So a child who is living at home with both parents, who are dealing well with their own stress, is probably going to experience less stress than someone who might be experiencing a divorce of their parents.
Sure.
Who haven't been able to acquire those skills and those coping mechanisms.
Okay, like I was just talking with a neighbor recently, and their daughter in grade 12 is like just freaking out because they're having to make these last minute decisions on what schools they want to go to.
Yes.
They're like 16 and 17 years old and they're having to decide like a major step going towards their future. I mean, how are kids that young able to handle, so much stress?
Right. You raise a good point because the reality is at certain points in life, there are going to be stressors that we can anticipate.
Okay.
Like now, grade 12, you don't have grade 13 anymore, OEC.
Dude,
So
that's old school.
It's coming up, so you can anticipate those things. But the interesting thing is, when we start to help our children develop those coping strategies and the ways to think about and manage their stress, when they get to grade 12 and those predictable stressors come, they're more able to manage it.
So be a little more preventative.
Yeah.
Start teaching them
proactive,
earlier.
Right?
Proactive.
Exactly. Yeah. You're helping them prepare because not all stress is bad stress.
I was going to ask you about that. I was reading through some stuff that you had written, and I thought stress was stress, but you're saying not all stress is bad?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
So I like to use the example of going to the gym. Okay. Although it's stressful, there's a purpose behind it, right?
Okay.
You won't build the muscle if you don't lift the weights, right? Those kinds of ideas. So even for younger kids, there might be stressful aspects of school, but school in and of itself is ideally supposed to be a positive stressor because it invites them to learn, it invites them to engage with friends, it invites them to learn how to organize and manage time and those kinds of things, which are essential things to have a effective and fulfilling life.
Okay, but are kids today exposed to different things that maybe you or I weren't exposed to when we were younger that maybe would add to their stress levels? Is it expectations? Is it technology? Are there different stresses today for kids?
Yeah, I definitely say there are different trends that happen and the same challenging things that people might have experienced in their individual walks of life. They're probably having more exposure, more frequent exposure, or easy access to those things. So whether we're talking about exposure to pornographic material,
right?
Someone might have stumbled across a book, or a magazine,
25 or 30 years
whereas
ago,
now it might pop up on their phone, uninvited, and so those kinds of things. I definitely think there's exposure to that, and then there's the peer element. Sometimes it's cool to play pranks with people or take advantage of people, bully people.
Yeah,
So there's
yeah.
definitely that element on a different level, but I'm sure you can remember those things were happening when we were younger too.
Yeah, sure they were. They were. You know, I mean, it's tough. It's hard being a parent today of a teenage child because, I mean, your heart breaks when you see them going through these different emotions. But you talk about it's important, it's actually healthy for teens to go through a whole myriad of emotions. But as a parent, I don't want my kids ever to suffer. I never want them to be disappointed or hurt. But we almost kind of have to let them.
It's so important. I mean, it would be a problem if we enjoyed them experiencing pain and suffering. And while we don't want that to happen, it's important for us to accept that it will happen. I mean, there's a difference between avoidable trauma and those kinds of things, and moments where it's important for us as parents to step in and be advocates or be proactive and preventative. But other times it's important for them to understand there are consequences to our actions. It might sound far and removed from dealing with day-to-day stress, but it's critical for them to understand. So if we can support them to endure the growing pains of taking responsibility, although it seems, again, far removed, it's creating that ability to tolerate that pain. It's creating an awareness and an understanding of, when I do things, this is how other people experience me. So if something is done to them, they can say, oh, okay, I know I've experienced this before, or this is new, but this is not comfortable. I don't like this. This is not the end of the world, mind you. I can deal with this, and more importantly, when I go home, my parents are familiar with helping me deal with, helping me work through, helping me walk through stress and pain. So I think it's important for us to help them understand that they can tolerate it, they can deal with it, and part of that is through labeling it. Part of that is, labeling it. It sounds really simple, but it's so fundamental, and I think it's transformative. So when a child is experienced, you see tears on their face. We could assume what that is. We could assume it's sadness, but it might not be sadness. It might be anger. It might be frustration. So when we actually talk to them about that and help them find the words to label it, not only are they validated in that moment, but now they've made an association. You were with them in that moment, they can tolerate it that much better. So the next time it happens, it's not going to be enjoyable, but it's not going to be new. It's not going to take them by surprise. They're going to build that skill, just like building that muscle.
You know, I hear you, you know, and I get the clinical part of it, but man, as a parent, you wish you could take everything your kids are going through and put it on yourself. But what I hear you saying is that it's important for them to go through that, because it not only builds their character, it helps prepare them for real life as they get older, right?
Yes, the rest of life. I think as a parent myself, it's important to know what role I'm playing, because that role is going to change over time. So if we're not preparing them to manage their own stress, we may be doing them a disservice by doing the heavy lifting for them. And then when we're not there, what are they going to do?
That's true.
Right?
That's true. You know what? Whenever you come on the program, you always have just this great, calm demeanor about you. You give sound advice.
Thanks.
And I know that a lot of parents have enjoyed it. So thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, my pleasure.